get it wrong is where they are focusing only on innovation, and they're not considering these other factors. But innovation doesn't happen inside of a black box. So I think the sign of a good leader, and hopefully all our AI space is made up of a lot of good leaders. I think I've seen a lot of them out there. They're able to look at the entire ecosystem and plan strategically. We look at the EU AI Act. What do we need to prove?
Right.
Like what are we required to have, and then what ought we to have? So I think being able to look at that whole ecosystem is just a really valuable asset. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks so much for joining us. I do want to, give you a few moments to do a quick intro, and then get back into the conversation. So, floor is yours.
Happy to be here. My name is Elizabeth Aguado, and I am an independent researcher with Ignite Light project and I have been also part of one of the NIST groups, public groups, and worked with All Tech is Human, which is also very human-centered, as I guess I catch. That's the main point from all the speakers. And I just wanted to sort of complement the conversation with some aspects regarding the cybersecurity perspective.
Yes, please. Yes.
Right. So I think we are actually still a little bit behind, if you ask me, even at a corporate level or like a company. When it comes to passwords, it sounds silly that we still have to have that conversation about passwords. But with AI systems, we are really in a period of time where a lot is being done. Right, you have the companies like OpenAI and Google, they're actually doing the research in which is adversarial attacks, right? Let's talk about prompt injection and trying to find ways to make the system more secure. However, we cannot forget that it's all interconnected. And for example, I use some integration of ChatGPT with Zapier, right? And some people just are right now maybe testing just all kinds of tools, right? It's really fun. I mean, I have fun with that, but there's also the side where you have to see that these systems are like in beta stage, right? And we have red teams, blue teams, and you have to like another panelist was talking, like data literacy has never been so important. And what I could say about the passwords, going back to my point, is that, for example, if I'm working with integrations or something very on point, like very specific, I always check that you're not using the same password for all your...
I am guilty of that.
Like memory is weak and whatever, but you could see, like, this information can be sold in the dark web, and maybe they have one of your passwords, but they don't have all of them, right? And then on the other hand, we have the fact that try to activate a multi-factor authentication, right? If let's say you're using ChatGPT, and I don't know, I can let the conversation go. I was just trying to sort of
I think it's extremely important. No, I think it's extremely important, especially with your background. And I think I want to ask this question and have you guys have, like a 1 second response or a gut response is, especially with, those of us on the panel now that come more from like a legal background, but you, Elizabeth, from a cybersecurity practice perspective, what is one thing you would say, hey, in terms of data information, this is what you should really keep in mind? Like, is it passwords? Is it, going into web systems and saying, yes, I check off that my information is there, or no, I don't? Is it using even something as mundane as incognito windows? I think, you know what I mean? I think all of us have kind of tried to go about these different routes, but one thing, I'm going to start with Elizabeth, then Rachel Smith, and then Rachel Harris.
Right. There is really no silver bullet for that, right? Like I said, we're still also, the companies are trying to do a better job at this, but at the moment we're still having that gap of, right. I would also mention that it depends on the industry, right? If you're in the legal industry, is a different field than, like, say, the healthcare industry, which is a lot more regulated. It's more strict. Always have conversations with your superiors, with your C-suite, right, about what is the policy at the company, right? Because, for example, I am also into ed tech, but so how much information am I revealing when I'm trying to play with the functions that we have for lesson planning, right? What am I revealing about the school or the faculty, right? So I would say, less. We don't have any control over data anonymization, but definitely be more sensitive about the practices in your own industry and company. So I give it to Rachel.
I'm so sorry. I did not mean to interrupt you.
Totally
I was just thinking, if that school data gets into the wrong hands, then it could be a really big problem. And that's another thing we see on the dark web is, attacks against children using pornographic images. And that's not part of the question. I'm sorry.
No.
It kind of is, because when we talk even about the potential misuse of this technology, we're also talking about the deep fakes, right? It gets a lot of attention. And they come up with new models like the VASA 2, and it will always the technology is just getting better and better. And just having just a part of our, like, say, a short video, then they can do a lot. They don't need like lens of footage to do something. So again, it's just being sensitive about what you're sharing. You shouldn't try. I mean, you should try to be more mindful when you're doing stuff that involves other people's lives, because it's. I mean, and it is also a lot of critical thinking, right? Like, what am I doing? Do I really need to share all these details, or is it enough with just
going back to the human agency component that Rachel Harris, you mentioned, and Dr. Dayton mentioned as well at the beginning. And I Rachel Harris, actually, if you have like a gut reaction to this, would love to grab it before I ask a question that I know is from the chat, but also kind of ties us up in terms of this conversation.
Yeah, perfect. Exactly what Elizabeth and Rachel both mentioned, and that is, and you mentioned as well, the human agency, and just remembering companies have an obligation in the privacy space to only use, keep, process the minimum amount of data they need. That is an evolving concept that some companies are behind and fully coming up into compliance with. So as an end user, always ask yourself, is there a social media account I signed up for 5 years ago that I forgot about? Is there a, DoorDash, GitHub, whatever? These are not companies I'm calling out, but just thinking of that I signed up years ago that I should probably go in and find where I can submit a request for them to delete all of my information.
Yes,
that is one way to get that data out of, as best we can, out of the potential scraping realm.
Right. So this brings me up into, I think, the question that kind of ties us up, for at least, for this panel. But I think it's no question that, we do have to keep in mind ethical considerations, especially with the misuse or potential misuse of artificial intelligence. And there is a need to push for promoting responsible development, deployment. First, I guess from Rachel Harris and Rachel Smith, are there specific things that you would say that we can do to promote these practices? And then a question, I think, and this is catering more towards Elizabeth, is there a specific tool that you would recommend in terms of redaction? Like a Control F search or anything like that. But for Rachel Harris, I want to start with you first, and then Rachel Smith, and then Elizabeth.
Yeah, I think a really quick soundbite, the concept of responsible AI is also evolving. And what's fascinating that we see as technology evolves is we simultaneously see a shift in regulation. So it starts off with principles and ideas and concepts and slowly morphs over into laws and regulations, which we're still all trying to figure out, which slowly morphs into standards that companies can be audited and certified in and have a certificate in, et cetera. And so to really center this, I think all of us at this webinar should continue to focus on what are those underlying principles that we want to see morphed into the laws and regulations. In terms of the frameworks as things currently stand, the big ones you're going to start to see NIST AI risk management framework, of course, but an auditable framework that we're starting to see come out is ISO 42001. So those are just some things to think about.
Okay. I think that made a lot of sense, Rachel. Thank you. I'm just going to take it away. There are a couple of things that I've really been wanting to say, so I'm going to get it off my chest. This is a conversation about AI ethics and responsibility. And I think that sometimes the fear of all this new and unknown things can be really strong. And I'm actually in that camp. I'm one of those people who sort of wants to pump the brakes so that we can be very intentional about this economic development. That said, I think those fears can hold us back when we don't include AI ethics, the positive side of things. So I think I just want to touch on the really amazing things about AI that I love are the way that we can democratize education. It makes it affordable for lower income people to get a professional level review on their paper. You can use ChatGPT like a template for your writing. I'm not actually advertising ChatGPT, but the point is there are good uses, right? And these are it's part of what we're talking about. But I just think, yes, we should be intentional and not take the human touch away. But with any new technology, there's the opportunity for it to be abused. And so I think rather than just being afraid, we need to take a balanced human approach. That's what I'll leave you with.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much for your time.
And then Elizabeth, a tool for redaction, or if you would think of one that comes to mind, and I'm going to open up this question to the floor itself.
We can't hear you.
Oh,
Okay, now. So there isn't really one tool. I think it would be a couple of measures. I would have to really talk independently, depending on what kind of network you have, and but if you really are feeling a little bit paranoid that, oh my god, it's connected to everything on the web, you could run maybe not ChatGPT, but a version of Llama locally, right? That's what people do, and they do it offline, and you can test a lot of things. That's in regards to open source. But like I said, for the other kind of hacks, it really depends on the situation and the person. So it's not something I can really, advocate for. And I 100% agree with both Rachel Harris and Smith. This conversation, it's evolving. It
Right.
will continue to evolve. I mean, it's right now it's that ISO, but we also had a lot of participation from the the IEEE, right?
Yeah.
Or there's a AI certified, and a lot of programs are very good, and we're trying to find what works best. And like I said, each industry has their needs as well, right? Their requirements. And
Yeah, it's evolving.
so
And
all I could advocate for it would be data literacy. Like I said,
yeah,
even stuff that is simple, like getting getting to know like these concepts of like what exactly they're talking when they mention phishing or malware. Am I really sure what they're talking about, or what's happening behind doors? Are there if I'm doing research, um, am I double checking the sources? Am I, if you hear about some new article, like what are the sources? Are there multiple sources, right, to avoid misinformation or disinformation, things like that? That's all I could add.
so thank you so much to our esteemed panelists. And for those of us that are listening in who have further comments or questions, feel free to reach out to Rachel Smith, Rachel Harris, and Elizabeth. And thank you to this organization, and also to Anne Marie for organizing this. We really appreciate your